It is so wonderful to welcome you here. This is Shabbat Vayera, which is our Shabbat that talks about seeing others, our Shabbat of recognizing that we are one of a community and how grateful we are to Marilyn Layton, who has been a member. How long have you been a member here, Marilyn? 1968, so it's not working out for Marilyn. It's 1968. That means it's a 56-year commitment that you've made to this community. I'm sorry, it's such a fly-by-night.
The thing I like to brag about is that my daughter Eleanor was the first rabbinical graduate of this congregation.
So I don't know if everyone heard, because I have the mic and Marilyn does not, but Eleanor Smith, Marilyn's daughter, is the first person to come out of Temple Beth Am who became a rabbi. But becoming a rabbi wasn't quite enough for Eleanor, let's be honest, and she also became an MD. So speaking for Rabbi Laura and myself, she kind of makes us look like really, really slackers. But we're so grateful that you all are here this evening, and we're so grateful that Marilyn's memoir class that has been going on for a very long time will be sharing some stories that you've been working on over the last year. And we're so grateful that we're not just here, but that there are some folks who are at home. And so I want to say that I'm Rabbi Ruth Zlotnick. I'm joined by Rabbi Laura Rump, and Marilyn Layton is here with her memoir class. Thank you to Taran, to Sarah, to Sean. Oh my goodness, remind me of your name. Doug. Yeah? Andy and Emma, to Jamie, who is at home. And Jamie, is this which camera should we look at? So I'm going to ask you all, if you're comfortable, to turn and that, and let's say Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And I see so many different people from Beth Am from so many different generations, so I'm going to encourage you to say Shabbat Shalom to one another. And maybe it means getting up and crossing the aisle and saying Shabbat Shalom. So, my friends, we are so grateful that we are doing this service on coastal Salish land of the Duwamish tribe. We're so grateful for this memoir class that has been going on since the 1970s, 80s?
1990.
90s. Okay, 1990s. And we are lighting 3 candles as we have since October 7th, 2023. And Marilyn's going to light it as we say the blessings. And we gave Marilyn the trick candles.
Just in case you weren't ready for the service.
And here's what we're going to do. You can use this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech
Beautiful. I got it.
haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner, le'adlik ner.
And I've often mentioned that Jonathan Safran Foer has talked about the fact that Jews have 6 senses: our eyes, our ears, our touch, our taste, our scent, and our memory. And thank you for helping us cultivate our memory. And so Marilyn's just going to so come over here so everyone can hear you. And Marilyn's just going to share a few words about what we're going to experience today.
Well, I have been involved with this class at Temple since Beth Weisberg tapped me for it. Beth Weisberg could tap you to be anybody, and you would have to do it.
Past president.
She launched me and she said, Marilyn, I think you should teach memoir here. And that was 1990. So I've been privileged to be with different wonderful people all these years. But when I started, I actually made a course at North Seattle College for seniors before I started teaching, or being in the memoir group here. But when I started, I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, it all came together, and my students were 40 years, 30 years younger than I. I was about 40, and they were in their 70s, 80s, people that you would know if I would name them, wonderful people. And then I noticed over the years that the people in the class were getting younger and younger. Now I am the oldest person in the group.
I would say you are the wisest person.
I never make a claim to wisdom. But anyway, I want to welcome you and say how happy we are to have you and how proud I am of the writers who will share their papers. It's amazing to me the gold inside of us. Every single person. Don't be telling me that you can't write, because there's gold waiting to see the light of day and the light of the synagogue. So,
Thank you, Marilyn. And Marilyn, you are a role model to us. And Marilyn will be back at the end of services too to help us say thank you to all of our authors. Thank you for cultivating the gold that is here. And what's beautiful about that is there's an imagery. You may not, Marilyn knows this because Marilyn's daughter is a rabbi. So you did this purposefully, right, Marilyn?
Oh, purposely.
Yeah, of course. But really, there's this beautiful, beautiful image in the fifth verse of Lecha Dodi, our song that welcomes in Shabbat, that says, Hitorari, Hitorari. Wake up and feel that golden light around you. So thank you for helping to cultivate the light of 6 of our community members who will share their stories. I'll invite you to sit down next to Rabbi Laura as we say, we continue with Lecha Dodi on page, I believe it's on page 20, and we'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem el tiferet v'litchila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. Shalachrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, hi micho ha'abrecha, merosh mekedem nesucha, sof ma'aser machshavat hila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki va'orech kumi uri, 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 shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla.
Please rise in body or spirit.
Ohi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzula, toch emunei hamsegula, boi chala. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mekabla.
We remain standing. Baruch Hu is on page 28.
Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed.
Thank you. Please be seated. And I was told to make sure that the bar mitzvah step is here, particularly for Hannah Eulenberg. We have the first two of our incredible memoirists. I'd like to invite Hannah Eulenberg and Mark Mayo forward. Hannah will begin and Mark will go next, and how grateful we are that they're sharing their memories with us.
Check on that box. Yes. To make sure it was there, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to see over.
Hannah is, I am low challenged, you're height challenged.
Indeed. Okay. So this is called My Start in Life. One of my roommates when I started college was Elsie Tanabe of Japanese heritage. We got a kick out of telling people that she was born in Portland, Oregon, and I was born in Shanghai, China. I was then invariably asked whether my father was a missionary. No, my parents were German Jews, and conditions were becoming more and more dire for Jews by the late 1930s. The only place a fleeing Jew could go without a visa was Shanghai, which was then occupied by Japan. By late 1940, that avenue escape was also closed. The Italians were running ships between Italy and Shanghai. My parents met on this ship, got married, had me. The match was not made in heaven, and they quickly divorced. In February 1943, the Japanese ordered all refugees who arrived in Shanghai after 1936 to move into a restricted area, which became the Shanghai Ghetto. I was 2 years old, and my mother and I lived in one of the refugee camps with about 10 other families in a large room with bunk beds hung with blankets for a bit of privacy. The bathroom facilities were in a separate space. My mother went to the soup kitchen every day to pick up our rations for the day. It was cold in the winter, hot and humid in the summer. Diseases were rampant. The bread often had worms in it. The Japanese surrendered to China in September 1945, thus liberating the ghetto. The Americans dropped leaflets on the ghetto, saying that they were on their way and don't do anything rash. Just like in the movies, the GIs rode through the streets in their jeeps, passing out candy to the little children. I was 4 years old at this time and participated in this ritual. We all spoke German. My given name was Hannah, spelled Hanna. Much like a Susan might be called Susie, I was called Honey by everyone. One of the GIs in a Jeep asked me my name, to which I naturally replied, Honey. He replied with, "What a sweet name." It was many years later when the realization hit me one day that when I said honey, he heard Honey. Some American Red Cross ladies appeared to run a day camp of sorts. They saw us as a ragtag group of refugee children. They were not aware that our parents had been well educated in Germany and were doctors, lawyers, business owners, artists, and musicians. So they taught us this little rhyme. Brush, brush, brush your teeth, brush them every day, or soon they will decay, and Daddy will have to pay the dentist right away. My father was a dentist. After the war, my mother married my stepfather, and my sister was born. The refugees were leaving Shanghai as quickly as possible, many for the US if they had someone who would agree to provide support as necessary. For those of us who did not have this guarantee, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, or HIAS, negotiated group US affidavits with Jewish Child and Family Services guaranteeing our support. HIAS brought us to America in a decommissioned troop transport, the SS General Gordon. My mother and one-year-old sister got a first-class room, and my stepdad and I were in steerage, he in the men's quarters, and I in the women's quarters. I was 7 years old and apparently lost only one pair of socks.
And now we welcome Mark Mayo, who can do what he wants with that. You can move that out of the way, or there you go.
Larry, I can take you in basketball right now. I got you. Desayuno, or breakfast. Time to roll, or perhaps more like stumble out of bed, my feet barely winning their wrestling match with a comforter, or dare I say, duvet, and amble downstairs. The sun's rays are warming the deck, and in their gentle game of hide and seek, they sneak past the ancient Doug fir to shower me with their glorious summer heat before once again jumping into the game and creeping in behind the majestic white birch. A 30-foot guest in our yard, or perhaps we are its guest. It was once an ankle-height orphaned sprout that our young daughters and I decided to nurse and nourish. Each season it grew faster than the 5 and 8-year-olds, rising past knees, heads of curly hair, past the deck, the roof, and now its 30-foot height providing shade from summer's heat. The espresso machine is warming up, readying to serve a doppio, sprinkled with cardamom and a dollop of silky smooth foam, a modified Turkish coffee, kahvesi. A cheese pareca, a feta and spinach bollo are plated beside a hard-boiled egg and 2 dolmas, both topped with a gentle squeeze of lemon, a few slices of Persian cucumber, and of course, a bizcocho for dunking into the kahvesi. Melon slices and berries, blues, raz, and fresh-picked blackberries circumnavigate the plated desayuno. Plate and kahvesi barely balanced in my hand, I wander out to the sun-warmed deck. The bush tits and wrens flitter and fly back to their branches. I greet Adna, our fig tree. Merhaba, Adna. Buenos dias. We're ready for a perfect day.
Yasher Koach. As I invite Hannah and Mark to go back to their seats down below, we say thank you for those incredibly evocative moments that remind us that the Jewish experience spans the globe, spans time, spans eternity. We are part of a oneness at the heart of creation. I invite you, if you choose to rise now as we sing of that oneness, the Shema on page 34.
Shema Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed, Leolam Vaed. Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated as Torin continues with Via Hafta. Oh, no, Sarah is continuing with Via Hafta. And I will just say, Sarah, who grew up in this congregation.
Third
so-
generation Beth Am, if I might
Third
add.
generation, Beth Am. Via Hafta, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים לחיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Yasher Koach, and thank you, Sarah. And so now we invite two more speakers up. I'm going to put just out of a modicum of caution, I'm going to put the stool out because we may have like our most height challenged and our most height happy speakers. Carol Aaron is going to speak first, and Alan Shulkin is going to speak next.
Is that okay? Life's Labyrinth, version 10 to be short enough to read. All living things start off as small versions of their full-grown selves. I have observed that inanimate things also have a way of expanding over time. In the mid-1980s, my third career reincarnation was that of Marketing Research Director at KOMO, the Seattle ABC affiliate. Before its expansion, the Como building was a crammed maze of cubicles that accommodated the growing TV and radio stations. The marketing department was across Denny on the third floor of a funky old brick building. This allowed my boss the luxury of a spacious corner office. The first time I went to the big building for a meeting, I became lost in the second floor maze. Busy employees rushed by me. The president of the company suddenly appeared. Taking notice of my confusion, he asked if he could help and then kindly escorted me to my destination. As we wended our way along the confusing halls, I asked him how he found his way around this labyrinth. He succinctly answered, "I created it." I get that. I can think of 3 areas of my life in which I have created labyrinths. Many years ago, when my stockbroker moved to another investment firm, I decided to manage our investments myself. Over time, I branched into other investments, but was better at buying and holding than selling and consolidating. A labyrinth was born. Bruce and I are now at the age when we are estate planning. Our heirs will likely appreciate their inheritances, but probably not so much the labyrinth. A less complicated gift for them will be downsizing from our house to a retirement community. The gift is that they will not have to worry about us as we age and have to shop for us or chauffeur us to appointments. The prospect of a move makes me wonder how long it will take to simplify the labyrinth of things that we have acquired over the decades. The family heirlooms that our children don't want, a house filled with furniture and tchotchkes, kitchenware and tools, closets and drawers of clothes, books and paintings. The books and paintings create a special dilemma for me. Sometimes I look up from what I am doing and survey the room, typically filled with paintings and stacks or shelves of books. Books that go back to childhood, outdated college textbooks, internet obsolete reference books, and other books that we will never read again or get around to reading once. More than 100 paintings, all with a story. The first ones painted by my aunt and cousin, followed by paintings from local artists at sidewalk fairs and yard sales, then from artists in plazas and open-air markets on 4 continents. I lately added to this labyrinth when I took up the brush during COVID. It is not easy contemplating making decisions about these literary and art children, or the rest of our household contents for that matter. The last labyrinth is our garden. When we bought our house, the garden was landscaped with low-maintenance Pacific Northwest evergreens. The rhododendrons and azaleas offer dazzling color during the spring, but we also wanted summer color. We created additional flower beds and thus began a long relationship with Jackson & Perkins, a 152-year-old Oregon company that cultivates roses. We started with 4 roses and now have 70. They live among many other flora friends and are a part-time job for me for 8 months of the year. Our yard, like the many paintings, is a labyrinth created out of a desire to have an aesthetic surrounding. We did this for ourselves, but the serendipity is that it turned out to be a gift to the neighborhood. When I am working in the yard, people often stop and tell me how much they enjoy our garden. One anonymous person left a painted rock. Another admirer sent an unsigned postcard to Rose Garden House with the message, "I love your roses!" exclamation point. Thanks for the beautiful garden. I drive by each day. Whatever challenges they present, these life's labyrinths have enriched us and many others.
Thank you. And probably we don't need this for Alan. Just guessing.
I may need it for the mic.
Yeah.
Well, mine is entitled, Get Along, Little Doggies. We looked out the window of the slate gray Cape Cod house for the last time. In the driveway was a baby blue Ford station wagon packed to the ceiling. On the street was a red moving van containing all the rest of our family's belongings, including the detritus of my first 8 years of life. As the moving van pulled away, my brother and sister and I climbed into the back of the station wagon with Dad in the driver's seat, Mom in the navigator's seat, and me, the youngest, relegated to the center of the back seat with the hump of the drivetrain at my feet. A shoebox with air holes sat on my sister's lap, containing her blue parakeet, Petey. Dad carefully checked the mirrors, looked over his shoulder, released the parking brake, and backed out from 46 Knoll Terrace, West Caldwell, New Jersey, for a planned 7-day migration to Woodland Hills, California. Our route was to take us first to Michigan to visit my Uncle Sid's family, and then south to the Texas Panhandle. While at first the state borders seemed to fairly whoosh by, the Panhandle was another story. We stopped for the night in Amarillo, and the next day drove and drove and drove and drove, passing what seemed like little or nothing to my East Coast eyes. Sorry, Puddin'. Occasionally we would stop for gas, and with all the windows rolled up, my sister would let Petey out of his shoebox to fly around. He would invariably settle on the high point of the car's interior, my dad's bald head. This did not endear Petey to Dad. We turned west on what would eventually become Interstate 10, and were still in Texas by the evening when we stopped at a motel a little east of El Paso. In the morning, we breakfasted from our Kellogg's Variety Pack, consisting of miniature containers of Frosted Flakes, Sugar Pops, and Sugar Smacks. We carefully used serrated plastic knives to cut an H in each little box, being sure to also cut the wax paper lining underneath, and folded back the 2 small rectangles to reveal the sweet cereal within. We carefully dribbled in just the right amount of milk that Mom had bought minutes before at a grocery across the street. After munching down the vitamin-fortified breakfast delights with our tiny plastic spoons, we lifted the carton carefully to our lips to drink the dregs of sugary milk. The next day, we continued into New Mexico, passing Santa Fe, where our parents had met during World War II. We pulled into a motel in Las Cruces on the late afternoon of February 9th, 1964. My 13-year-old sister insisted we had to be done with dinner and back in the motel room in time for the start of the Ed Sullivan Show. She ignored the various variety acts, but leaped to attention when Sullivan announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles," who broke out with, "I Want to Hold Your Hand," while my sister and the studio audience screamed in excitement. To my parents and my 10-year-old brother and me, it just seemed noisy. As we drove our way closer to our home-to-be in the San Fernando Valley, I started getting very excited, having been told by my parents that we'd be living in a ranch house. I pictured myself getting to ride a horse to school every day while wearing a big cowboy hat. As we drove west on the Ventura Freeway, I started to wonder where all the cattle were. I was astounded and inconsolable when our station wagon pulled into the driveway of a stucco tract house in a suburban neighborhood, and soon learned that ranch house simply meant that it only had one story. No horse, no saddle, no sombrero. Tomorrow we would start school by walking down the street, not galloping through the Ponderosa.
Alan and Carol, I'm going to, Marilyn asked for the right of saying a word or two before. Yes, no, you should stay here, yeah. And, but you have to speak in the mic.
I won't hear you on Zoom.
I never have done this before. So, Alan, and good evening again. Alan, you said on the telephone recently how happy you were to be here for this night. And I knew that that had a very strong double meaning because Alan had a dreadful illness some years ago. And he had always been one of the shofar players over the new year here at Temple Beth Am. And so he was there. He had his shofar. He blew it. And that darn thing just squeaked like a mouse. And we were all dying. We just, our hearts just were sinking. And then he tried again. And when the second time was over, we were all recuperating from our heart attacks. And he blew that shofar like it had never been blown before or since, probably.
Yeah.
And we're so happy that you're here and that everybody's here.
So we want to say thank you for helping Marilyn, who's been doing this class for so long. And how long have you been a part of this class, Carol?
We're both kind of newbies.
6 years ago?
Yeah.
Only 6 years, yeah. So I invite you
Before
both, you both to have a seat. I invite you to have a seat as I invite Rabbi Laura to come forward and to help us move into the next part of our service.
Thank you. Marilyn and I were just remarking that stories can contain prayers, and likewise, prayers can be based on and contain stories in them, including our Amidah, our central standing prayer, which begins with, the prayers of our ancestors, the story of our ancestors, and brings us to this moment in time, and however we find ourselves in this sanctuary with the prayers that we've brought. So however your story weaves into the larger Jewish story, invite you to rise however you're able and join us on page 46. And Sarah's going to lead us in our Amidah. Adonai sefatai tifta u'piya gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol v'zocher Chasrei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atav Rav Lehoshia, Morid, oh, nope. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechalkel chaim bechesed. Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech cholim. Umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melech melech mimit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata l'chachayot hakol. Baruch ata Adonai mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehalu chasela. Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We continue with some moments of silence, with the personal prayers you've brought tonight, with the words on the page as we continue through page 62, perhaps just with a deep breath, seated or standing, however you feel most connected, and we'll continue in song in just a few moments. hope you all feel how much you're moving this room. Thank you. It was beautiful. We're going to continue with a prayer for healing. We are in a community that is so clearly overflowing with love and wisdom to share, and we are also interconnected and connected to those in our lives who are in need of healing and support of mind and body and spirit, and that may include some of us in this room as well. So before we turn to the words of Misha Berach, I invite you, if you have a name or a few names that you'd like to share out loud that we can extend healing prayers to please do so now. Holding those names close, we turn to the words of Misha Berach on page 253.
May each and every one know a full and speedy recovery of body and soul. So now we invite two more memoirists who are of different height. So Larry Katz and Beryl Schulman, we invite you. Beryl, would you like the stand to stand on, or do you feel okay without it? I think maybe we'll give it to you. Is that okay? Just so you can be as tall as Larry.
I think people can still see me, right?
You're okay, okay. And so Beryl and then Larry, and if you'll just say the name of your piece.
B. Eisner and Sons, A Story of America's Promise. When I was a child, my family stopped occasionally at B. Eisner and Sons on the corners of Vesey and Greenwich Streets in Lower Manhattan. A large, mostly warehouse-type space, open in front to loading docks and filled with crates and bushels, this produce business was a straight shot to the Hudson River. It was also close to the Wall Street district and the Brooklyn Bridge. B. Eisner and Sons was the family business, the place where my maternal grandfather went to work, the source of special melons and other fruit at our house, the focus of family disputes, and the cause of angst for my mother, who became tense anytime we approached Vesey Street. The beginnings of this business and the emotions surrounding it go back to one man and a pushcart 125 years ago. In 1898, amidst economic depression and persecution of Jews in Russia, Barnett Eisner, a peddler, emigrated to the United States to build a new life for his family. He left his pregnant wife, Esther, and their toddler daughter with friends who ran an inn in their shtetl. After giving birth, Esther and the children traveled steerage class to New York. Meanwhile, Barnett had acquired a pushcart in Manhattan and was peddling goods such as soda syrups and buckles. When he switched to selling produce and positioned himself in front of a store with foot traffic from the throngs ferrying to and from New Jersey, he experienced some success. In time, Barnett was able to rent space in the store, leaving the pushcart out front to attract customers. As his children became old enough to walk from grade school to the store, they helped out there. The eldest son, my Papa Sam, left school after 8th grade as he was needed to work in the business, while his younger siblings were able to complete high school. Around 1910, when construction of the tubes for train transit reduced the number of people commuting by ferry, the produce business experienced a downturn. By this time, however, Wall Street executives had become frequent customers, and some of their firms had begun supplying their executive dining rooms with produce from B. Eisner. Gradually, Barnett transitioned his business from resale to wholesale, selling to hotels, banks, and restaurants, in addition to Wall Street firms. With the business doing well, Barnett purchased the building the store was in and moved his family into living quarters upstairs. When the business outgrew its space, it relocated to Vesey Street. By 1925, Barnett owned a car and a house in Brooklyn. And during the Great Depression, the business continued to generate enough income to feed the family. Over the years, my Papa Sam became the buyer for the business, requiring him to meet ships as they docked in the early morning hours. This meant that he slept during the daytime and early evening, a schedule that compelled my mother to keep her rambunctious first daughter, my sister, quiet when they shared my grandparents' Brooklyn apartment during World War II. Barnett, the great-grandfather for whom I was named, died shortly before I was born. Much to my mother's displeasure, her uncle Meyer, who had been a thorn in her side growing up and acted superior to his older brother Sam, took charge of the business. My mother's brother, Joey, continued to make deliveries in one of the 17 navy blue B. Eisner trucks, one of which drives through a scene in the 1971 movie, The French Connection. Joey's truck driving role was a source of contention for my mother, who felt that he should have been elevated to a more lucrative position in the family business. During the 1960s, the government exercised eminent domain, condemning the land on which the World Trade Center was to be built. This land included the building at Vesey and Greenwich that housed B. Eisner and Sons. After years of appeals, leading eventually to the US Supreme Court, shopkeepers and other business owners were not successful in challenging the use of eminent domain. B. Eisner and Sons moved to Van Dam Street, where it operated until 1992. And we all know what happened to the World Trade Center.
Thank you, Beryl. And now, as our final memoirist, no pressure, Larry, Larry Katz.
Well, I was thinking about writing a sequel to last year's story and calling it Hanukkah Harry Returns, but then I reconsidered. So this is a different subject. It's called Getting Hip, or Me and Hercules. Diane and I went to Italy and the Czech Republic in September 2016. We flew to Florence, went to Siena, onward to Cinque Terre and Lake Como, then flew to Prague. This was our last vacation before my total right hip replacement surgery, scheduled 2 months later for November. Both my hips had deteriorated to the point that my quality of life was really suffering. I could not do many of the activities I so enjoyed, and would go to bed early because of the constant pain. Despite this, we went on a long-planned trip to Italy. We landed in Florence in the morning after a lengthy plane flight. It was quite hot. We dropped our bags at the hotel and were enjoying the relative coolness of the hotel lobby for a few minutes prior to our first explorations. In just a small vignette showing how fulfilling travel can be, a fellow traveler came into the lobby carrying a small flat package. He unwrapped it, showing the contents to be some fine-looking, thinly cut local prosciutto ham. He grabbed one slice and ate it, and then nodded his head to himself as an affirmation of how good it tasted. This scene only lasted a minute or two, but has stayed with me over the years as a great example of how to best enjoy the local culture of a distant land. We had decided to spend our first afternoon in the Pitti Palace, the former home of the great Medici family, which now contained several museums. We started on the upper floor, making our way down. At this point, between the air travel and the walking, my hips were weak. Descending the grand staircase on the way to the first floor, I stumbled. Now, there happened to be a bust of Hercules on a pedestal in the middle of the landing. I was heading straight toward it, my arms instinctively outstretched to break my fall. Diana on the side of the landing, unable to help, dismayed about the pending disaster. During the few seconds this was happening, I had visions of knocking the statue down to the floor, breaking it into pieces, causing an international imbroglio, getting arrested for destruction of antiquities, and being sent to prison. Fortunately, while my hips were shot, my reflexes were still good. I managed to shift my arms so that both my hands landed on the wall to the right of Hercules with nothing destroyed except for my fragile ego. The rest of the trip went smoothly, except for my hitting some poor man hard on the top of his head with my elbow on an extraordinarily crowded train. Because of my hips, I had to go back to the hotel early several afternoons to recuperate, while Diana would be an Energizer bunny clambering up the cliff walks of Cinque Terre. I felt just a bit sorry for myself. After we returned home, I had my right hip replaced, followed by the left hip 9 months later. Both surgeries went amazingly well. Modern medicine gifting me new hips. And once again, I am in the lead when we go hiking uphill and have so far successfully avoided crashing into museum masterpieces.
Yasha Koach. So I'll invite the two of you to have a seat. And I will say that it was in one of those hip replacements that you taught me, Larry, a very famous Jewish joke about two men who sit on a bench. One says, "Oi," the other says, "Oi," and the first one says, "I thought we weren't going to talk about politics." I learned that from Larry Katz. I'm going to invite Marilyn to come back forward to say a few words about these 6 memoirists who are really just the tip of the iceberg in your wonderful class. And I'm going to invite you to come forward, and we have a little surprise for you, so don't talk too long because we have someone coming forward to talk about you as well, Marilyn. So I'd like to invite Puddin.
My husband, Dick.
Oh, I wish it was. Dick is here in spirit.
Greetings again. What a joy it is to be with you, and how much you contribute to our health, to our mental health. I think that if you want the cheapest psychiatrist in the world, you write your own story. And that works because you have put into words like concrete that which you've carried. And when it's painful, putting it on paper removes in part the pain and the sting, or removes it altogether. So writing is an extremely valuable tool that you each have. And I know 100% of you, or maybe 90%, minus the people who are sharing with us tonight, you say, oh, I can't write. I don't write. No. Well, I hope that you will reconsider that, because it's immensely helpful to you, and you participate in the process of turning your lives into art.
And what we say here is that every story you have to share is sacred. It really is. And so, Marilyn, we want to thank you. I'm going to invite Puddin to come forward to say a word or two and hand you this incredible bouquet.
Oh.
And so Puddin Cox, who is a member of our board of directors, wants to offer a few words on behalf of your memoir class.
On behalf of all the members of the memoir class, and lo, these almost 35 years that Marilyn has been guiding so many young and older people to look at their lives and to create art in so many ways that that we have a legacy to leave for our families, and to have them have a view or a window into our lives. It's very important to us. You are our leader and our teacher, and we are beholden to you for all the love and guidance that you give us. And it's a real thrill to be able to read in our Zoom meeting, and to have your knowledgeable and insightful feedback on what we have to say, and to assist us in relating this special story of ours in a more literary and artful presentation. I think it's really extraordinary that you have given so many years to Temple, and you have a huge family of students just in this temple that speak your name with great love and great admiration. And so this is just a small token.
And I have to say, I can smell those roses from here. And you know, there's a beautiful teaching. This week's Torah portion speaks again about Abraham and Sarah, and it says that their wisdom was like a great perfume that was opened up into the world. So I want to say thank you to Marilyn, thank you to Puddin, thank you to the memoir class. The perfume that you have opened up of memory into the world is sacred. And so now it is my honor to invite you to sit down and to invite Laura to come forward.
The rabbi is worried I'm going to speak more, right?
Oh, no.
That's what the oneg's for. Don't worry, we've got time.
No. But this is a time of memory. I will say that my husband, my beloved husband, always says, no one ever said, could you speak longer, Rabbi? No one in the history of the Jewish people have ever said that.
Thank you. Well, this entire service has been dedicated to that sixth sense, that sacred memory that we all feel enlivened by. And as we move to put a seal on our service, we turn to the words of Mourner's Kaddish and particularly elevate the memories of those that we've lost recently in this community, those whose yard sites are at this time, and perhaps for some of us, those who, just listening to the stories tonight, are feeling the particular sharpness of memory of someone that we love that's passed away. And here at Temple Beth Am, we are marking Shloshim, the first 30 days since the passing of Judy Raphael, mother of Stephanie Levine, mother-in-law of Andy Levine, grandmother of David, Eric, and Adam, great-grandmother to 11 great-grandchildren. Thelma Balbus, sister of Sheila Corey, sister-in-law of Michael Corey, aunt to Dan and Rebecca Corey. You're thinking of Samuel Dickerman, brother-in-law of Wendy, uncle to Charles Dickerman and Gabby Charlton, uncle-in-law to Jen Knudsen and Dan Charlton, great-uncle to Avi and Hannah Charlton. We're thinking of Jack Lorber, husband of Gail Lorber and brother of Elaine Packman. Robin Burke, sister-in-law of Sandy Berger and Fred Smith, aunt of Aaron and Daniel Smith, and David Werschel, brother of Joanne Hornstein, brother-in-law of Thomas Hornstein, uncle of Rabbi Marla Hornstein, Amy Beth Hornstein-Blauer, and Becky Hornstein-Error. We're also marking the yard sites tonight of Helen Jaffe, Jeffrey Berkman, Stanford Kahn Bloom Jr., Henry Boyer, Gaston Cabot, Evan Crosby, Edith Evans, Reuben Fishman, Eunice Faulkner Fleischer, Georgia Goodmanson, Dorothy Grunfeld, Eric Haas, Joseph Hoyt, Gerald Katz, Gerald Liffick, Donna Moreno, Byron Nelson, Bernice Noble, William Ratner, Frances Salzberg, Susan Schacht, Rachel Scheiper, David Morris Seidel, Iris Siegel, Morris Smith, Janice Stein, Charles Stern, and Elaine Stoller. If you're thinking of anyone additional tonight, or if there's someone whose name I missed or mispronounced, I invite you now to share with our community anyone who you're thinking of before we say the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. If you are in the observing Shiva, the first week since the passing of a loved one, I invite you to rise. Or Shloshim, the first 30 days since the passing of a loved one. If you are honoring a yard site or observing Shana, the first year since the passing of a loved one, we invite you to rise. We can recognize you. And if is your custom, we invite the entire community to stand as you're able with our mourners in connection and in care as we read the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shamei rabbah be'alma divrach hiruteh ve'amlich malchuteh b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya b'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. We say zikronam livracha. May their memories always, always be for blessing, and perhaps may we be inspired to share more of those memories with each other as we have an opportunity to at the Oneg. But first, we will bless our Kiddush wine and sing Motzi together. Thank you, Taran, for leading us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam asher gedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu B'Shabbat kodsho ve'ahava u'ratzon hinhilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta b'kohamim v'shabbat kodeshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat l'chaim.
Chaim. And now, as is our cozy custom here at Temple Beth Am, we're going to get close to the challah or close to someone who's touching the challah. So we'll make a little bit of a funky chain here that extends. Please help me in blessing this beautiful bread that we'll share together. Thank you, Taran. All right, someone's got to be connected to this challah. Let's go. It doesn't count if you're not touching the bread. Okay. I know I have to open it. It's true. It's true. Okay, everyone take a deep... we won't stand on ceremony. We've become family. Okay, here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz atei avon. Shabbat shalom.
So we have a closing song. Don't we have a closing song?
We do, of course we do.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, right?
All right, I'll
Is that
take a
what
little
it
piece.
is?
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Please join us. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
We have a special oneg in the social hall. If you want to say thank you to our amazing memoirists or to Marilyn, please join us for the oneg. Shabbat services tomorrow at 10:30.
Yeah, Shabbat shalom.